There is coffee over there. And if you want a coffee for after your ice cream, we welcome our own famous Deacon Becky Williamson.
Thank you.
And but before I forget, I just want to let you know, if you're thinking of the following weeks, next week is Equine Voices Rescue and Sanctuary. They'll be talking about the horses that they have down in Amato area. And I think it's Karen Pomeroy will be here. She's the founder of Equine Voices. But tonight we have a wonderful topic, pilgrimage as a way of life. And if we're talking about Lent, pilgrimage is definitely a special part of that. I'll just pass it on to Deacon Beck.
Well, you know, when a church doesn't have much money, they always go to the deacon. Well, and Father Warren wanted me to kind of do a talk kind of about my, what I do, which you'll see after a while, is icons. And I thought, I don't know if I can talk just about icons, but icons have become a pilgrimage for me as well. So it's all part of my life. So how many of you have ever been on a pilgrimage? I know Judy has. Okay, there. Well, probably you all should raise your hand, because life is pilgrimage. But I started really young. Over my lifetime, I climbed mountains. I did 114er, Mount Sneffels in Colorado. I backpacked all over Wyoming and Colorado. I lived in 4 states and Australia. I walked the Wicklow Way in Ireland, which was over 100 miles. I changed careers several times. I journeyed to death's door with my partner Sue. I paint icons. Each of these life experiences held in common the primary characteristic of a walking pilgrimage. The exterior trials created within me an interior change. So what is a pilgrimage? For those of you that have never been on one, you'll probably figure out that that's what you've been doing your whole life. It's a living metaphor, a journey with the purpose of deepening the wisdom of the mind, body, soul, and spirit. Our mind is the vessel in which we experience our inner and outer journey. Our body is the vehicle for the pilgrimage. Our soul is the totality of our psychic process. Our spirit is the presence of the ground of all being within us that holds mind, body, and soul together in a loving embrace. The work that it requires to change the mind, body, soul, and spirit into a new being will be the most painful yet rewarding experience of our life. The sacred art of pilgrimage is deeply inscribed in the human heart. For many, going on pilgrimage will mean physical travel. That's usually what people think of when people go on a pilgrimage. Walking the labyrinth can be a pilgrimage. When lived with intention, all of life can be seen as a sacred journey. We think of a pilgrimage as a journey of great spiritual and moral significance. Yet our whole life's course can be seen as a pilgrimage. A simple walk from your home and back can become a ritual to enact these sacred quests. If you walk and you listen to books or music, try walking with nothing sometime and see how different it is. You're not being entertained, you're just being. The word pilgrimage derives from the Latin peregrinus, meaning stranger or foreigner. On some level, pilgrimage always connotes a life-changing journey. For some, pilgrimage means to journey to a place where holiness is apparent, or where some kind of divine and human encounter took place. Some describe the experience as a search for spiritual depth or moral significance. Others are on a search for a path toward freedom or peace. Some pilgrims are directed towards specific destinations, such as a dwelling place of a saint. People like to go see St. Francis of Assisi, at Assisi, or the Holy Land, or a holy place that evokes prayer and reflection or the site of a significant life event. For others, the passage is symbolic of the journey of a soul to God, and primarily an inward experience of alternative sacred geography. Still others describe pilgrimage as a threshold experience that points to a new reality or process of inner transformation. Who is a pilgrim? The pilgrim is a seeker, one who is searching for inner transformation. Isn't that all of us? The call of pilgrimage continually beckons the pilgrim down the walking road, whether in Ireland, Spain, the Holy Land, or some other locale. I am a pilgrim on the road of always becoming who I authentically am, a lifetime of traveling the road less traveled. The road less traveled could be a local path right out your front door. Pilgrimage, though, is more about the process than the trail on which we walk. Pilgrimage necessitates that we open the front door of our ordinary life and walk into another reality. At first, the dream is to walk. Then the walking becomes the dream. And then another dream emerges into the walking. Sometimes, though, those dreams feel like nightmares. These are the journeys in our lives that feel interminably long, as we may not have chosen to walk. Walking with someone who is dying. Those are hard walks. A pilgrimage can be any journey, physical, emotional, psychic, spiritual, that has the potential to shape our soul and change the way we sense, think, feel, and imagine our life. The trails we walk could be many. A new job, a new town, grief, depression, disease, divorce, or aging. It's all of us. We walk many pilgrimages in our life. The question is, how will we walk the unfamiliar miles we encounter? Pilgrimage is about finding our own way. Who is the pilgrim? Many of the pilgrims who travel are not necessarily of the same religious tradition, and they are often not totally committed to the pilgrim tradition. But pilgrims go on pilgrimage because they feel a longing in their hearts, and they are searching for something, perhaps divine love or inner peace, healing from a broken heart, or a more meaningful life. And they gained solace from belonging to a group of pilgrims along the way. Why do people become pilgrims? The answers to this question are as diverse as the numbers of pilgrims who have traveled the path before them. Some go on pilgrimage seeking meaning, looking for their heart's desire. Others want to heal, and still others hope to find a more authentic home. I know people who travel the U.S. when they retire and look for a new home. They buy an RV, sell everything, and off they go until they find Green Valley. A pilgrimage is more than a standard trip or journey. While some embark on pilgrimages with a sense of adventure, it is not a journey intended for relaxation. It almost always begins with a sense of call or a deep yearning on the part of the pilgrim, sometimes with great urgency to go forward. Regardless of how the pilgrim takes the pilgrimage, the focus of most of the narratives is on the individual. Why did I become a pilgrim? I've always been a walker and a hiker, and one day on a long walk, I felt the call to go on a pilgrimage. My priest, Gil Stafford, had walked many pilgrimages, and I really wanted to go on a pilgrimage with him. Gil was planning a pilgrimage to walk the Wicklow Way outside of Dublin in the Wicklow Mountains and invited all who wanted to come. There were 13 of us, 3 in the over 60 club, 3 in the early 40s, and the other 7 were under 30. I was the oldest. The pilgrimage begins at home. And at the time I was living in Mesa up by the Superstition Mountains. I started walking with intention in January for my pilgrimage in Ireland in June. I wore my heavy boots and carried a full pack. I walked 3.5 miles daily around my neighborhood with my trainer, Frida, my pug. Every weekend I walked 10 plus miles in the Superstition Mountains near Phoenix. These are just a few of the pictures of the beautiful superstitions. Lots of cactus, creosote bush, and desert. I was a pilgrim who was searching for a soul-shaping experience. The beauty of the Superstition Mountains. Hiking down to Canyon Lake. Weaver's Needle. Maybe some of you have seen it. I walked around this monolith and saw it from every angle. Eventually, it became my touchstone on my walks. The rugged rocks of the superstitions. Sometimes I saw green leaves and water, but not often. 5 months of training, and I felt I was ready for the Wicklow Way. After completing the pilgrimage, I realized that the majority of my pilgrimage had taken place in the Superstition Mountains. Flying into Dublin. In the summer of 2014, I walked with a group of 13 friends from my church. The first day, we began walking along a lovely flat tree-lined paved path in Marley Park. The first hour of the pilgrimage was filled with exuberant chatter. Our excitement of finally getting started was laced with anxiety about the unknown. This is the tree-lined path in Marley Park, just outside Dublin. And off we went. Within 2 miles, we began what would become the daily process of hiking up and down, 2 or 3 peaks of 1,000 to 1,500 feet. And that doesn't sound like much, but you're coming from sea level, so it is a climb. And whoever thought that Ireland is lush and soft, they've never walked. Because Ireland was made by glaciers, and so there are lots of rocks. Even climbing that first hill of Dublin Mountain, there was lots of conversation among the group. The sky was clear that day, and everybody was stopping to catch their breath and to take pictures of Dublin Bay. Gradually, the group strung out in single file, and silence set in. We were very careful to follow the signage so we didn't end up where we started. It was very helpful to have other eyes looking for the way markers, the yellow hiking man, particularly those times when the marker was hiding in the overgrowth. Walking for 8 hours in silence is wonderful, and at the same time daunting. Sometimes it's good to have another person to talk to, especially to share thoughts about the magnificent scenery, the tough walking, the unexpected surfacing of emotions. I'm an introvert at heart, so walking alone is easy, but making pilgrimage with a group has touched my soul in ways being alone might not have. Within a few days, the trail was already taking its toll on our pilgrims. Packs seemed heavier, boots tighter, the trail rougher. Blisters could not be ignored. Backs were sore, knees creaking under the strain. Every morning, several of us offered first aid for blisters, sprained ankles, and other maladies. By the end of the walk, we ran out of Band-Aids, athletic tape, and ibuprofen. The trek of the mountains was often through a dense forest. The eastern Irish mountains are filled with forests pocketed with bald spots covered in brush or bog, sometimes both. By the looks of what I had to step over, the trail was also the path of the local sheep and cattle. I created a mantra for myself as I walked. I would say, uppity up, up, and downy down, down. When I was climbing up the Wicklow Mountains or walking on rocks or the hard tarmac of the road, or the railroad ties with fence staples protruding to keep one from slipping into the bog, I prayed more than I have in my entire life. Sometimes even my feet were praying. The Holy Spirit lifted my tired, aching feet 1 foot at a time until I finished each day with nothing left of my own spirit except to go on the next day. One of the most exceptional places we visited and spent 2 days of rest and worship was in the monastic city of Glendalough, where the monastery of St. Kevin was established in the 6th century. Glendalough is a valley of 2 lakes and is sometimes referred to as the jewel in the heart of the Wicklow Mountains. There's a fascination and enchantment about this area that has attracted people for hundreds of years. The fascination could be with the old ruins of the monastic city, or just the beauty of the scenery in the valley and the emerald green lakes. I would say that for me it is one of those special places where you sense the thinness between the other world of the spirits. It was definitely a place of deep spirituality. The Sunday we spent at Glendalough, we not only experienced the spirituality of the area, but we worshipped at a special place called St. Mary's, the Church of the Women. The site is quiet and secluded from the rest of the city ruins. The presence of the feminine was noticeable by the lovely flowers present around the church site. St. Mary's is reputed to be the oldest church in the lower valley. It is thought that the church was a community gathering place for religious women, or simply just a church for women. Inside the church, there is a deep sense of peace in the presence of a gentle spirit. Outside the church, there are many small, unmarked gravestones where the bodies of unbaptized babies were buried up until recent times. This is a place that people often feel the presence of their own unborn hopes and dreams. On that Sunday, the women of the group led the worship service. That morning, as we joined in singing chants, praying, and sharing the Eucharist, I felt the presence of all the women before who worshiped in this church. I knew that all the women who had worshiped here in the past would be watching over us as we continued our journey down the road. A few slides of the beauty of Ireland. I love this sign. This is actually one of the lakes at Glendalough as we were walking out. Walking south out of the Glendalough Valley, our group started with a steep climb that turns into a relatively comfortable 12-mile hike south of Glenmalure, the official halfway point of the Wicklow Way. For hundreds of years, this region of rugged and heavy forest had been a famous hideout for Irish rebels and outlaws. Now the Glenmalure Lodge, built in 1801, is host to hikers, fishermen, and outdoor enthusiasts. The next day's walk out of Glenmalure is an 18-mile hike to the hamlet of Moyne, which is probably the name of the original settler or landowner of that farmland. Walking a pilgrimage is very much like living one's life in a very short segment. The walk is driven by the goal to finish, but the days leading up to the goal are filled with feelings of pain, anger, joy, pain, laughter, melancholy, pain, envy, fear, and did I mention pain? The end of the walk was all on tarmac, and that's hard walking. At the end of the walk, we celebrated our accomplishment with a pint of Guinness. We took one last group picture, and within a few hours, we began to go our separate ways. Some went home to Phoenix, others to Seattle. The walking pilgrimage community came to an end. But each pilgrim will live with profound memories and continue to carry what we learned, cherish what we experienced, and be better people for having been together. The pilgrimage continues. I'm sure you're wondering why I just talked about a pilgrimage I did over 10 years ago. Well, the pilgrimage continues, and today it involves, for me, icons. The iconographer's fundamental task is not merely painting, but prayer. My method and medium is imbued with prayer, without which the results of painting, perhaps being stylistic correct, would become spiritually impotent. Thus, the task of the iconographer is the task which all disciples of Jesus must apply to themselves, namely the death to self, that manifests itself in a willingness to disappear into the mission of the church. He must increase, but I must decrease. From John 3:30. This is what an iconographer must not only know, but also be willing to do. Icons are a bridge toward transcendence and a route of access to God. This particular icon I gave to Father Warren. Why do people paint icons? You don't have to be an artist. I can't even draw a stick figure very well. Creating an icon is to embark on a journey through prayer and silence in which one will come to know intimately, not so much a process, but a person. Jesus, Mary, or the men and women in the drama of salvation history who, like us, lived, loved, suffered, laughed, struggled, and ultimately became so absorbed in the life of God that his light came to shine through them. Our service then extends to all who come to pray before the image that we've created. Why me? In 2020, during the pandemic and caring for my partner who was dying, I needed an outlet. A friend of mine posted on Facebook that she had bought a do-it-yourself book and was going to paint icons. She challenged anyone who wanted to join her. I bought the book and taught myself to paint an icon. I called my first icon Scary Jesus. And I'll make it a little bigger so you can see how scary it is. My first icon was of Jesus, which still I have on my wall. It's rather unskilled, but it was the very best I could do at the time. And it helps me remember not only that time of beginning, but the journey or the pilgrimage along the way. When you paint icons, you are embarking on a journey into a relationship with the other, a journey that entails an inner dynamic in which one speaks and the other listens, and then vice versa. This is called conversation. And as a very wise priest friend of mine used to say, wisdom is in the conversation. The conversation is part of the journey, and the journey is nothing more than a step-by-step process. Oopsie, sorry about that. By which we arrive at a destination. While we do have maps and signposts pointing us in a particular direction, just like the little walking man, we get into our rhythm. The act of going from step to step will become as natural and organic as putting one foot in front of the other. Mary Magdalene was my second icon. Icons have experienced the phenomenal resurgence in Western spirituality, and what were once the ancient and sacred language of our Orthodox brothers and sisters are now an increasingly integral part of the faith journey for all Christians. 30 years ago, the solemn, silent, and dark images of Christ, the Virgin Mary, saints, and holy people were rarely seen outside of museums and art books. But today they are being engaged and venerated by more Western Christians. They pray with them, integrate them into their liturgies and sacred places, have them in their homes. I have lots if you ever want to see them. And are moved to create them in workshops that are now being conducted all over the world. Why is that? Because Western Christians have discovered icons not only for what they are, but also for what they are not. Museum pieces, dusty relics from an earlier epoch of faith, staring gloomily at us with large eyes darkened by centuries of suet, tallow, and the unforgiving effects of time. Instead, icons are living in vibrant testaments of faith, sacred portals through which God's truth and beauty shine forth into our realm and literally stare us in the face. How do you paint an icon? We start with the gessoed panel, which is basically a wood panel, expressly prepared for the purpose of painting in a particular style or media, egg tempera, oils, and acrylics. And I brought a few with me of icons I've completed so you can kind of see what the gessoed board looks like. It's white, and then you put a base color on it, and it becomes alive. By using a gessoed panel, we honor the pre-existing Word, and the reason is twofold. First, as a gift of God's creation, which was spoken into existence by God's Word. Wood is a sturdy and dependable material of great durability that is found aplenty in most parts of the world. Second, in using wood, we honor the cross, the means to which our salvation was achieved. The wood of the panel, even at the supposed state of nothingness and void, shares by both its physical and its spiritual DNA a memory of Christ and his paschal mystery, and because of this, we approach the material with reverence. We begin by tracing the cartoon. The cartoon is just a basic picture of the finished product. It's traced onto the panel using carbon paper, and using a liner brush and a dark color, we paint the lines of the drawing. The old iconographers used to carve the lines in, and I did my probably the first few with carved lines. It's really hard to find those lines. It's much easier if you paint a dark line, and then as you begin to build the layers, the lines are still there. Then you paint the base colors. Several thin, translucent layers of color are added. And oftentimes it's like 5 layers of a particular color before you ever start to do any highlights. First highlights are several thins of translucent layers of color that are painted in small areas following the map. And that's what the map looks like. So when you're painting, it's a much lighter color than the base color. You're always going lighter and smaller. And that's the painting then. This is not my painting. This is my teacher's painting. And the second highlights, it's the same thing, only it's smaller, brighter than the preceding highlight, and it's placed on top of the first highlight. So again, you're following a map. And you can see with the lighter colors within the garments and the skin, you begin to bring the icon to life. And all the highlights begin to bring the whole icon together, making it more finished. Enliveners and glisten in the eyes. That's the real fine lines that you see right here at the chin, and the eyes, on the shoulder. Number 1 are the enliveners and glisten in the eyes. Number 3 is in the garments. And number 2 is the lettering. The lettering is always the last thing that you put on. Then you reinstate the original lines, which kind of brings it all together. And after the icon is dried for several days, it is ready to be varnished. This process seals the image and protects it from the damaging effects of dust, dirt, and harmful light. This was my final painting, taking Jesus down from the cross. And as we were doing the stations, I could remember painting it. So when you're painting these things, and you're reminded so much of different parts of Scripture as you paint. And from the bottom up, we have St. Michael and all angels. And again, these were my first ones. They're much rougher. Mary Magdalene, that was my first St. Francis, and then another Jesus. It's Mary and Child. Weep not for me. St. Win-Win from, it's not Ireland, I can't remember where she was from. St. David of Thessalonica. 3 Men in the Fire, the Holy Family. This was done at Advent just a couple months ago. This is my most recent one, the St. Francis getting the Stigmata. Taking you on an exhausting long pilgrimage, you walked the Wicklow Way and viewed the spirituality of icons. I'd like to leave you with this blessing by John O'Donohue. For a new beginning in out-of-the-way places of the heart, where your thoughts never think to wander, this beginning has been quietly forming, waiting until you were ready to emerge. For a long time it has watched your desire, feeling the emptiness growing inside you, noticing how you willed yourself on, still unable to leave what you had outgrown. It watched you play with the seduction of safety and the gray promises that sameness whispered, heard the waves of turmoil rise and relent, wondered, would you always live like this? Then the delight when your courage kindled, and out you stepped onto a new ground, your eyes young again with energy and dream, a path of plenitude opening before you. Though your destination is not yet clear, you can trust the promise of this opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning. That is at one with your life's desire. Awaken your spirit to adventure. Hold nothing back. Learn to find ease and risk. Soon you will be home in a new rhythm, for your soul senses the world that awaits you. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
If anyone wants to speak,
Were you camping on the pilgrimage?
No, we were in bed and breakfast.
Oh, bed and breakfast.
A lot of people on the Wicklow Way turn their homes into bed and breakfasts in the summertime because so many people walk the Wicklow Way, and they'll live in the back part of their home, and they have all these rooms, and they provide a meal. For most of the places we went, we had an evening meal and a breakfast, and then we had to make our own lunches.
How long did it take you?
8 days.
And are all pilgrimages like this, up and down?
Well, the one most people think of is the walk in Spain, which is over 400 miles. And I knew a guy that walked the Appalachian Trail from beginning to end, and I don't know what that is. I just know it goes from the south all the way up to New York. And that's months. So some of those they become months. And my former priest, Gil Stafford, he walked half of the island of Ireland on his own. And he said that it was better walking with people because he got a little nuts. Too much time alone.
Bart and I did the Camino de Santiago,
Yeah.
which is 500 miles in 35 days.
Yep. That was just a couple years ago, right? Jen? She didn't hear me.
The pilgrimage that I went on was of a different bend. I went on a pilgrimage in France, and we visited the Incorruptibles and took a tour all around France, including Lourdes. So there's different types of...
Yes, there is. Absolutely.
I appreciate what you shared.
Thank you. Okay. Joyce has a question.
I don't know.
and don't forget there are some icons to look at before you leave too.
What you're sharing reminded me of, and I didn't even think about it until today, till now, was the pilgrimage that I took when I was getting divorced.
Yep. Absolutely, it is. That's why I said it's all different, takes all different kinds of shapes and forms.
And the growth that you come through, hopefully.
Absolutely. To the other side. Anyone else? Well, you're welcome to browse the icons, and I'm here if you don't want to ask a question out loud. You can come up here, and I'll be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Deacon Beck.